Hey, welcome back everyone. So in this one, I want to walk you through drawing an upshot of the torso. And the way I like to do this, one of the ways, but pretty much the main way, the way that I found that is best for myself, hopefully for you as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. But I start with the almighty box, prism, three-dimensional thingy. So I start with this because what happens is for me, if I try to draw a torso, and I'm saying like the upper body, you guys can let me know if you need me to explain more, but I'm just going to start with this. Just so you know, when I pick these certain things on the channel here, it's just because it gives me a direction and a focus. But this really applies to all other parts of the body. Hopefully you get that. But I like to explain some of the anatomy as I go. So what I'll do is I'll first find a cross section like this. Keep in mind you can crisscross your corners. I was kind of off there, but you don't have to. I just want some reference point for a center line. And then from here, I can start to figure out, the way that, the way all the other lines of the anatomy are going to go. So the collarbones drop down, get a little dip in there, get the chesticles like this. Now, so this is something right here where really you could say this all needs to wrap up. You could probably start with something like this, give yourself some wrapping lines that actually curve upward so that you start to try to envision that upward perspective of the barrel like nature of the chest, right? It's real easy to want to push these lines down, but then you're probably going to lose some of that feeling of perspective. So I'm going to round this portion of the chest up and back, and then I obviously still have to connect up and around this way to get like the look of a chest. And then the abdomen it's a tough word to say, isn't it? Abdomen. It's tough to say. It's even tougher to acquire, really. So when you can see anyways, or the muscles. So like basically we already know that curves up. Well, it'd curve up even more dramatically, right? So we'll just kind of go with that. I don't know if you could make that curve up any more dramatically. And the other tricky thing when doing this is trying to get the feeling that certain things overlap. So the more extreme this version of perspective is, the more these neighboring components have to really overlap, not just curve up, but then really start to block the view from the other aspects. Like it's really evident in arms. You got to like sometimes cover up the entire upper arm with the forearm, stuff like that. So I'll put one arm out just so it's not too awfully boring. Like that. Just use some cylinders. The shoulder is going to be way up on top at this point. You're probably going to see a little bit of the back delt at an angle like this. And we'll bring this arm down. Put the bicep here. So hopefully you can see now that that basic prism makes it a lot easier to zero in and focus on this. It just, perspective gives you all sorts of guiding principles, right, to draw whatever you're drawing. So if you struggle with things like this, then you might just need to put more perspective guides or grids or landmarks of some kind. I think it's a similar idea of like why it's a lot easier to draw the body once you start paying attention to the bony landmarks, because it just gives you those reference points to work with that you otherwise might be not paying attention to or something, just kind of imagining. I don't know. I think that people believe that art is just all like you got this great imagination, and I think some of that works. I don't know. It doesn't work for me as much as it used to. Like I think my imagination took a hit. I'm trying to read more fiction and stuff like that. Read books without pop-ups, see if I can get my imagination going. But the thing is that basically, if you can't imagine it, but you still want to draw it, I feel like you just have to take the steps. You just have to you got to utilize the fundamentals. You got to utilize perspective. You got to take the time to sit there and painstakingly study anatomy. So this is one of the things that I always thought was kind of strange. Is like I would study anatomy over and over, and just somehow keep skewing it and getting it wrong. And I still do. It's not like this is good anatomy. I've got flaws in this, obviously. But the thing is that usually when something clicks is because I actually learned something about the anatomy in a way that wasn't even pertaining to the visual representation of it. So what I mean by that is like you can't really see where all the muscles connect to the bones, right? So you'd kind of avoid studying that. Like, why do I need to know insertion points and origins? Because I just need the superficial data, right? No, what happens is when you learn the insertion points, it relates into your drawing as you knowing exactly where to put things. And then you start to think differently about it. So when you raise an arm up, you're thinking about the chest pulling all the way up through here to the other side of the bicep, or, to top of the bicep. You're not just thinking about it stopping and ending here, is what I'm saying. So those insertion points in that knowledge of the actual anatomy will actually show up in your illustration, even though you're not talking about superficial representations of the visual thing. You know what I mean? Hopefully that makes sense to you. But it's kind of neat in a sense. Like, I guess that, instead of getting bored by that stuff and go, wow, why would I need to know that? You'd be amazed. It might be just the thing that you need to learn that makes it click for you. So bust out those anatomy books and start paying attention to insertion points, and there's more than that. I'm just using that as a to make a point. Basically, there's all sorts of things. Same thing as studying the skeletal structure and the skull itself. You want to draw faces better. Draw lots of skulls. And by the way, I know that I'm moving around the anatomy based on stylistic choices. Hopefully you're aware of that. I mention it in a lot of videos that I just do that when I'm, just drawing from my mind here and just playing around. So I know that there's going to be inconsistencies here, obviously, when I do that. But yeah, if you want to get better at drawing faces, start drawing the skull over and over, every imaginable angle. And even pay attention to the terminology of those bony landmarks. It's crazy how many there are, but I don't know, it's kind of neat too. Like when you really pay attention to the orbital cavity and the zygomatic bone, all that good stuff, you start to think about it a little bit differently. I guess that's the main thing, is that the knowledge makes you think about this stuff a bit more in depth than you otherwise would if you're just thinking about the shapes that you're looking at all the time. Which that rings true as well. You're still going to do that. But yeah, so there's how I would try to envision it. And I would, obviously this is just like the rough sketch of it. I keep moving these things around. I keep changing lines as far as like the shape of the or the direction of these lines. I like to play around with that for stylistic endeavors. I also like to make sure that the top one here has a bit more of an angle coming out. Then that comes back. Then that, you kind of want this. Here, let me do it with a red line so you can see what I'm talking about. You kind of want this effect that it's coming out, down. So always think about your center line. And as soon as I do that, look what it exposes, that these abdominal muscles don't have enough curvature this way, and I'm losing some of that form. So I would keep adjusting these lines to hopefully get that more and more in tune with what I want. But what I can guarantee you of, or pretty much guarantee you of, is that if you start with these basic prisms like this, they can really aid you in figuring out where all the placement of this stuff goes. Like if I go to draw the pelvis, I've got enough reference points here where I can drop in the pelvis to this character, hopefully reasonably well. But if I'm not getting it right, then I might just need to add a prism that gives me a sense of that perspective first, and then build out from there. So, and I would want there to be a little bit of a tilt. So remember that the top representation of the anatomy, the upper torso, compared to the lower pelvis, always has a little bit, and sometimes a significant amount of tilt in the orientation from the top to bottom. It's a little slant that you get there. it really just serves as a good reminder to not draw everything so stacked. This applies to arms, legs, every part of the body really. Even this particular pose, it feels a little too straight. I needed more curvature in the waist, stuff like that, to make it look more organic. But I'm going to go ahead and time lapse this next part. I'm going to add shadows and rendering. So let me know what you think of the video as well as what you want to see in the future. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck with the art, and bye for now.